Hey everyone. Oh, there we go. Just forgot to unmute myself. How is everyone doing today? I hope everyone can hear and see me. Please let me know where you guys are coming from around the world. Um, yeah, because for me right now it's 1 o'clock, currently in France. So yeah, please share that in the chat. So to get started, today I'm going to talk about custom landmarkers. And this is kind of a follow-up to my previous session, which was explaining how to create custom landmarkers, how to import them in your Lens Studio project and all that. And here I'm actually going to go into creating interactive environments. So kind of combining, oh wow, I see people are joining from Atlanta, 7 a.m. Wow. Indonesia, 6 p.m. Okay, that's nice. Well, thank you for joining, everyone. Yeah, so I'll get started. And oh wow, 4:30 India. Okay, that's great. 4 a.m. Los Angeles. Oh my God, that is insane. Christian, that is very early. All right. Well, I'll get started then. So to discuss this to give you some information on what you can expect today. Basically, I'm going to teach you how to create an illusion of breaking windows in augmented reality. So to do so, it's basically going to be using different programs. So we're going to be using a little bit of Blender. We're also going to be using Lens Studio, obviously, and I'll share how to use the custom landmarker with physics to create immersive experience, as you can see on this video here, where I broke my window, which is pretty neat. So yeah, that should be the focus of the session. And of course, if you have any questions, please let me know in the chat. I can always answer at the end of the session or during the session if you have like any burning questions. So yeah, that's it for what we're going to do today. Here's a little brief introduction on who I am. If you didn't catch it last time, my name's Arthur. I'm a creative technologist slash developer. I'm currently working at Go Spooky in the Netherlands. I'm also a Snap AR ambassador, and I'm originally French, and I'm also really into surfing. So yeah, that's a little fun fact about myself. So yeah, I wanted to mention that today the workshop is sponsored by Snap. So big thank you to Snap for this. So yeah, I guess I will jump straight into the session to not lose any time, because this one's a little bit lengthy. And first off, we're going to start off with Blender. So I don't know, let me know in the chat, have you guys used Blender before? Like, are there any Blender experts? Because I certainly am not, but yeah, I'd like drop a little message in the chat if you've used it before. It's a really powerful tool for 3D modeling. It's open source. Oh, I see intermediate people here. That's great. So yeah, Blender is really good. Oh yeah, the famous donut. Yeah, that's something that we've all been through. But here it's a much simpler process that we're gonna be looking at. It's basically just creating the fractured mesh that you saw in the little preview to simulate that glass breaking effect. So the way we're going to do this is just simply open a Blender project here and actually start off with the cube, which is really surprising because usually the first thing you do is delete this cube, but here we're actually going to be using it as a reference for the window. So the first thing you can do here, as you see on the right, is that there's different scale sliders. So in our case, we're going to try to create something that looks a little bit like a window. So I'll start by making a little bit a window shaped rectangle here. And well, as you can see, it doesn't really look like much, but it doesn't really matter in this case. We don't really need to have something that is exactly the same size as the window you're going to try to break. So yeah, you can basically just scale this as you wish, and you can always make changes in Lens Studio later. So the first step we're going to do is actually add a little plugin here, which should be in the edit. You go into preferences, and then we get this little window. So you're going to want to click on add-ons here and look for something called Cell Fracture. So it should be a built-in plugin within Blender. And you basically want to install it by clicking install here. Well, I already have it installed, but yeah, that's kind of what you want to do first. And that should be the first step here. The second thing you want to do is actually go into edit mode here. So you can click edit mode right there, which you should see here, opens these little, shows the vertices on the mesh here. And the reason we're going to do this is actually because if we were to use the cell fracture on this mesh right here, it would only break it into 8 or 9 big pieces, which is not really what we want. So to make it break into a bunch of different small pieces, we actually want to subdivide the mesh here. So when you have it in edit mode, you want to do a right click here and click subdivide. And so as you can see here, it adds more vertices on the mesh. So we're going to do that a few times. I'm going to do it 3 times here for simplicity's sake. And then we want to switch back to object mode. From there, we want to go into this object tab right here and scroll down to quick effects. And here you have a bunch of different things, but you see you have this option called cell fracture, which wasn't there before, but now should be because you've added the little add-on there. So then in here, what you want to do is actually add some noise to the effects. So there's a lot of settings here you can play around with, but for simplicity's sake, we're not gonna move things around too much. But if you really want to get different effects, so how sharp the glass pieces are, how many are going to appear, how randomly they're going to break, you can really have fun. It's a great tool. But I'm just going to change the noise to 1 here, so it creates a random pattern when the window breaks. And yeah, when you click OK here, you can actually see it generate in real time, which looks really cool. And what's also pretty nice is that all the glass pieces are actually, should be centered here. So using physics is going to be even easier. So yeah, then we have this little, window here. And it's basically it for Blender. That's the whole process. So don't need to do anything crazy. The next step is to export this mesh. So we're going to go into File, Export, and then click FBX. So I'll just put this on my desktop, and I will just call it broken window. I'll just deselect the camera here because we don't. Oh no, that's not what I wanted to do. Yeah, you don't need to have the camera selected nor the lamp because that would just import it twice into Lens Studio. And then I'm just going to click export FBX, and that should be it. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I kind of rushed through the process. So if you have any questions, just let me know. I know like Blender can be really confusing when you first look at it. There's a lot of different tools in there. You can do so many things, but for now, this is all that we need. So yeah, please let me know if you have any questions regarding this. But the next step we can do is actually open Lens Studio. So straight away, I have a window right here. Just gonna resize it a little bit. Let me know if you can see everything. My internet connection here isn't fantastic. So yeah, if there's any issues, just let me know. So yeah, this is a blank Lens Studio project. And if you want to actually make this an exportable lens that you're going to publish at the end, it would be better to do it in the custom landmarker templates. And I went over how to do this in the previous session. So making your project compatible with Lens Studio's, Snap's like requirements. So if you want to publish this at the end, which I really recommend, you should watch that session. But yeah, for here, the first thing that we're gonna do to start things off is that I'm going to start by adding the location tracking and select custom location. So this is what I explained in my previous session. Every time you do a custom land marker, you get a location ID. So in this case, I have my location ID right here in another window. And this is like a simple window I have in my garden. So I'll just type in the code that I received. So each code is unique. So, I mean, this code right here, even if you type it in, you should be able to get my garden window, but there's not a lot of utility with that. So I do recommend you do your own custom land marker and then break a window using this project templates. So yeah, there we go. Oh, so the codes, I see there's a question here. The code basically is what you're going to get when you do a custom land marker scan on your phone. At the end, when you're done through the process, the lens that allows you to create these custom land markers will give you this code that you can enter directly into the project. So that's something also I covered in the previous session. So as you can see here, it opens immediately my garden window, which is pretty well done. And yes, the window lines up perfectly with the camera, which is also very neat. So what we're gonna do right now is that I'm actually going to import the broken window FBX that I have here. So I exported it to my desktop, so I can just drag and drop it here. Then I should get this panel. I can just click import. That should be loading pretty quickly. There we go. So now you can see there's this prefab that appeared in my resources, and I can simply drag and drop the broken window in here. So it appears fairly large, as you can see. And that's really not an issue. We can resize and align everything. And what's also really nice here that another thing that we're going to be using is that there's the original window that is not fractured. So as you can see here, if I zoom in, you can see the little fractured pieces. But there's also this large window, which we're actually going to be swapping out. So to make this illusion as realistic as possible, we're actually going to be doing a window swap, which I'll explain in a minute. But for now, what we want to do is actually lock the scale and pretty much make it smaller so we can actually align everything with my real window here. I'll then get this position slider and just put it right here. Oh yeah, do you want to, so the location ID basically is, I see there's a question, that's why I'm answering. But the location ID is basically a location, it's a unique ID that's gonna be generated when you scan a custom land marker on your phone. So it's unique to every scan that you do. If you want to use the one from my garden just for this tutorial, you can see it right here. It's in my objects right there, and it's also in the resources. But I'll show you I'll give you the resources at the end of the session. But you can actually do there's actually a lens you can open on your phone, so in Snapchat, that allows you to do a scan and then get this custom location ID. So I'll share all of this at the end. But yeah, that's a great question. But for now, yeah, I'm just gonna import, resize this window right there, make it a little bit larger, actually rotate it into place. So I added a 90-degree angle, and then I'll try to make it fit in this location. So if I unlock the scale, I can use this this scaling tool right here. that allows you to scale the window properly. So this is pretty nice when you have to do things visually. And then so I'll make it a bit longer and a little bit larger. There we go. And then it's just a matter of aligning everything. And voila, there we go. So now you can see it kind of fits nicely. Yeah, it fits nicely with the custom landmarker mesh, which I've generated from my phone. And the next step we're going to want to do is actually add physics to this project. So I know there's another great session on physics that's happening, I think, on Friday, which you should definitely check out. But I'm just going to do a little brief introduction to it, I guess, in a very simple way. And the first step for applying physics to the project is going to be to basically select all of these different cube cells, because we could be doing these one by one, but it's actually much easier to just select everything here and then add a physics body component. And as you can see already, the little glass pieces on my right window here just fell out of the world, which is perfectly normal. So it means that everything works. And also you can see in the scene window, there's actually all these different squares that appear. And this is actually the shape type. So you can actually change it depending on the objects that you're trying to apply physics to. But in this case, because these glass pieces are irregular shapes, having them as squares is really nice, because then it actually pushes them away from each other. So it creates a more realistic effect. And yes, if I refresh the window here, you can see them fall out of the scene. But the problem is here, they're actually falling till the end of the world. So that's not really what we want. So what we're going to do is actually create a collider plane on the ground, which is going to be aligned with the real world ground. So it looks like the pieces are actually falling on my terrace. So to do so, it's quite simple. We're going to add a plane object. So I'm sorry, it seems to be cropped out from the scene here. But yeah, we're going to add this plane mesh. And as you can see, it appears like so. And what we're going to want to do is actually make it very large. So I will make it 100 to start out. So yeah, there we go. Now it's not in the right direction. So let me just align it properly. All right, there we go. So now it's upside down. And I'll just make it -90. And there we go. We have the ground plane here. So what we want to do with this ground plane is actually slide it down. And this is another tip from my previous session that is very useful to have here, is that I scanned the real world ground when I was doing my custom landmarker. And that allows me here to perfectly align the ground plane with the real ground, which is a really useful thing to have, especially if you're doing physics. So from there on, I see that everything's perfectly aligned. So I will make, I'll make the ground a little bit bigger. I'll make it 500 pixels, well, centimeters in this case. And there we go. That should be it. And from there, the only thing we need to do is add a component called a physics collider. And from now, what should happen is, oh, it's selected as a sphere, which is not what we want. So we actually want to select it as a box. And if we hit refresh here, there we go. You can actually see all of the little pieces collide with the ground. So that's a pretty neat version already. You can see all of that fall in there. But this is just the first step of creating the illusion. What we're going to want to do next is actually apply some textures and some materials that make it look more like glass. So to do so, we can go straight into the asset library, and there's this useful asset called glass. So we have this, double-sided glass. Let me know if you've used this before. It's a really useful material to have. I really like it. Yeah, and also let me know if you have any questions regarding physics. I'm no expert, but I think I know a thing or two now. So yeah, please let me know. Um, but yeah, when we have imported this glass asset here, you should see there's a bunch of different resources that should appear. And the only thing we're going to need in this tutorial is actually the graph glass material. So you can actually make this glass double-sided and import that also in your project, but that's another process. So to do this simple glass effect, we're just going to select all of these different cube cells and the original window, which I'm actually going to rename to make things a little easier. We're going to select all of these and then just drag and drop on the material here, the glass material. And there we go. Now, when you look at the scene here, you can actually see a reflection within the glass pieces. And so that's the effect that we want to have here. So yeah, if I refresh the window here, you can actually see them fall to the ground and look a lot like glass. So one thing I am noticing here is that my window is kind of thick. So I am going to make it a little bit thinner. And to do so, I should just be able to take this tool right here and kind of slide it like so. And as you can see, I'm making the window slightly thinner. So if I hit refresh, it's smaller glass pieces, which gives a more realistic look here. And yeah, from now on, there's only a few little steps that we need to take here. And the first one is actually creating a tap to break effect, because right now when we just start the lens, the physics get applied instantaneously and everything falls to the ground. But this is not really what we want. We actually want to have the option to actually tap multiple windows. And so that's something that, you know, for instance, if you're in an art gallery, or if you have a shop with a few windows, you could actually go around and tap every single window and break them one by one, which would be a really cool illusion. And also another thing you could actually do is mess with the physics root world settings here, and you can actually make the simulation rates quicker or slower. So for instance, if I make it slower here, you can see the pieces kind of fall in a slower motion. You can also do that by changing the gravity, which is right here. You can actually make your pieces fly out with different forces, but that's a lot of physics talk that I won't cover today. But yeah, for now, we're just going to be implementing this script here that's going to allow us to kind of swap out these windows. So yeah, let me know if you have any other questions regarding this. But for now, I'm going to import two little scripts that I've made to make things simpler. I'll kind of explain how they were created, and yeah, I'll just drag and drop them into my project. I will be sharing these at the end of the session, so don't feel the need to like screenshot anything right now. But yeah, I have these two little scripts, and the first one is called this main controller here. So I will try to make this slightly larger. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. All right. I will just, yeah, I'll just do it like this for now. Yeah, that works. So as you can see in this script, it's fairly simple. There's only two inputs. So the main window and the broken window, which are two different objects that we're going to have to import in this script. Then there's binding right here. Oh, and yeah, obviously, let me know if you have any questions regarding the script, because I don't know. Let me know also if you've used scripting in the past, because it can be a little bit confusing if this is the first time you see this. But basically here, this binding is just creating a function that will start whenever the script is started. So by default, what we want to have is right here, this start function with touch system, so touch blocking. And so I don't know if you've used this before, but this is actually a really useful line of code that I tend to use in a lot of projects where you have to tap your screen, because in Lens Studio, well, when you open your project from Lens Studio in Snap, whenever you tap the screen, it tends to actually autofocus every time. So sometimes, especially with experiences with custom land markers, everything can get misaligned every time you touch your screen, and it gets like super annoying because everything starts to break and the illusion doesn't look as good. So I definitely recommend activating touch blocking, which doesn't allow you to autofocus, but allows you to tap different objects on your screen without making things blurry and changing all the time. So that's basically the touch blocking script line here. Then we also have this enabled / true, which is basically enabling the window by default, and basically here making all the broken window pieces disabled, which means that when they are disabled, physics aren't happening. So it's pretty convenient because that's what we want to do. We want to activate physics when the glass is tapped. So that's where we have the second function here, which is a global function, because it's going to be called from another script. So that's what a global function is. You can call it from any other script. And what it's going to do here is actually disable the window and enable all of the different glass pieces. So I'll show you right now how it works. We're just going to go into the object panel, just do create scene object. Well, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to rename this to main controller, I guess. And then just drag and drop the main controller script right here. So we should get an error here, which is fairly normal. It's because we don't have these scene objects selected. So I'm going to go into the broken window prefab and drag and drop the main window here and put it in this window input. And then for the broken window here, to make things a little bit simple, because we can't really drag and drop these 50 pieces here, I'm actually going to select all of the cube cells by doing a little shift click, and then click Control G or Command G on your computer, which should group all of these different objects into one scene object. So it's all going to make them children of that object. And we're going to call this broken window. And from there, I just need to select my main controller script, drag and drop it into there, and there we go. So as you can see on the side here, well, can't really see it now, but yeah, as you can see right there, the window isn't breaking, but when I click it, nothing happens. So that's the next step that we're gonna try and fix here. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions regarding this. It's just zooming by for now. But yeah, the next step that we're gonna do here is actually add a tap to break script, which we're gonna attach to the window, so we can actually directly tap the window mesh and activate this script. So to do so, I'm just gonna get my little tap script here, which is very simple. As you can see, it's only 2 lines, and it could be only 1 line if you wanted to, but actually I made it 2 lines because what this does is that it's inputting a integer, which is a number basically. And well, here it's called can, but we should call this window. Just call this script.window. And what this allows us to do is actually give a number to every window. So if you have, as I was saying earlier, a gallery with a bunch of windows, you could actually tap different windows and have a different number for each window by attaching this script to every window, if that makes sense. So what you're going to do here is actually just drag and drop the script, which calls the global function glass tapped, which we have in our other script right here. So you can see it right there. And it's actually going to give it the input script.window, so the number, which then if you do an if statement, you could select what happens or which window you want to break from that. So yeah, we're going to just drag and drop it to the window here, and then we're going to get an error, which is normal. because what we want to do here is actually make the script not on awake, but on touch ended. And you can select it, I guess, on tapped or on touch moved or a few different things. But in this case, we're going to do touch ended. So that clears the error that we just saw previously. And from there, we're actually also going to add the interaction tapping element here. And what we want to do is actually select the camera right here and add the mesh as the broken in the broken window prefab, added as the window. So when we click that, that means that if we tap in different areas, it won't break the window. But if I tap on the window here, you can see it immediately breaks and falls to the ground. So that's pretty much the basics of the effect. Well, the tapping mechanism at least. And what's really cool as well is that you can actually go even crazier with this and start adding different colliders to make this look more realistic. So I don't know if you can see it right now if I disable the plane, but on my custom landmark or scan here, there's actually a little step that we see right here. So it's actually yeah, like a little step in my window. But if we have the default plane, what happens is that it's just going to fall through that mesh into at the default plane. So if you want to make a more realistic effect, you could actually add a second plane on the top part of the step here, and then have it look like the glass is actually falling from the side. So it's fairly easy. You just what you can do is actually duplicate the plane. And I'll do it right now just as a demonstration, but we can make it smaller here. So let's put it at 100 and then drag this plane to the side. And basically, okay, let's make it a little bit smaller. There we go. Then just pretty much align the side of the plane with the window. So let me know if this is clear. It might be a bit confusing if this is the first time you've used physics here, but you can actually, yeah, there you go. Align the plane right there to the side of the step. And so if I replay this directly in here, you should see it. Oh, yeah, I'm on the wrong side of the window. Yeah, you should actually see it fall and go over the little step here. So you can see here on the top plane, the glass is staying, but it's also dropping to the bottom plane. So that makes it look more realistic in your project. And so to finish everything off, what we're going to do is actually add an occlusion material and just drag and drop it to these two different planes. So I select both planes, I take the occluder, I put it right here. And then for this window frame, you can also apply an occluder to it by just going into the location mesh right there, then clicking on the mesh and just dropping the occluder. So now it's going to look very, very empty in the preview window. But you can see there's actually the glass window, the original glass window that's right there. And when you tap on it, you can see it fall. And then there's also that little step effect that we can see where the glass is falling off the step and just like diving and slowly moving. You can even make this a little bit quicker or slower by going back into the physics settings here, just changing the simulation rates. There we go. And yeah, you can see it's falling at a slower pace. So yeah, I guess that is pretty much it with this this project. Let me know if you have any questions. I think I've gone over pretty much everything you need to create this effect. And yeah, oh, I wanted to show you, yes, when you have the window here on the tap script, you actually have the window number that I was mentioning earlier. And you can actually change this to, let's say, window number 1, window number 2, and then in the script, in the main script, you can have an if statement here and activate different windows at different times. So by enabling the components whenever that window number is triggered. So yeah, then to show you what the final effect looks like, I'll just drag this here. You can see right there the final lens. Oh wow, I'm seeing a very large question here. So I'll answer that in a second, just showing you the final effect. So you have all the different pieces there. You actually see the reflection of the lights, which is very cool. So yeah, that's the final effect. So Q&A time. Yes, I will go through a couple of questions from Elena. So I see question number 1. How can we place objects in a world connected to a physical space? So that really depends. You can, I'm not sure I really understand what you mean by that. Do you mean like digital objects? Because you can create this effect with any kind of objects. It doesn't need to be glass. You could also have different, like in my previous session, like a 3D, okay, yeah, digital 3D objects. So to do so, you actually can import any kind of object in the scene, and it can be from like like online resources and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it could be. Do you mean like the files that you want to import? I'm not sure I really understand. But a good thing, I mean, if you mean like how to place them correctly, nice thing to do is actually be at the location that you want to place these objects. But if you can't be at the location, or you need to be there like once, what you can do is actually create a LiDAR scan of the how to place them correctly. Right. So there's multiple ways of doing this, but yeah, the first one obviously is being at the location, but that's not super practical because usually it's outside. But basically, yeah, having a LiDAR scan maybe from an external app and importing that as well in Lens Studio to align everything could help. But locking them in the space, actually, that happens by default with custom landmarkers. It basically switches the tracking on your phone from world tracking to the landmarker tracking. And so all the objects that are going to be in the scene are based off the custom landmarker alignment, if that makes sense. So you don't really need to like manually readjust everything every time. It's basically going to base the entire project on that landmarker mesh. So yeah, that's another thing I was saying last time. If you have a landmarker project and you are doing multiple attempts, you might want to just use a final custom landmarker. So get like a really good version of a custom landmarker and then just use that as a reference for your entire project. Or else every time you import a new custom landmarker, the position of things are going to shift a little bit, and it might make everything like pretty complicated. So yeah, that's another tip I can give. I see. So the second question that Elena, you were asking is, template world connected proportionally to our physical space where objects are hidden. I'm not sure if that's a question. Let me just, so yeah, for the second question, I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you want to have like really large objects hidden behind a mesh, you might want to get an external recreation of whatever building or structure is going to be occluding those objects. So you can do that by either doing a photogrammetry scan of, let's say, a fountain or a building, and then hiding things behind that and setting it as an occluder. Or yeah, you could just have a LiDAR scan and then import that as well. Well, you probably have to clean it up because usually LiDAR scans are like fairly heavy. But yeah, in general, for really large structures, I think it's recommended to have a separate scan from an external application. So yeah, third question. Okay, have people go through a process of searching and scanning to find objects after a while without objects popping up instantaneously on screen? Oh, okay. So I guess, yeah, what you could do is actually disable the objects on purpose. And then maybe if a person gets to a certain location, let's say if someone's walking around, you could have something tracking their distance. So the distance between the user, so the person holding the camera, which is going to be the world tracking camera, and then that object. And if a person gets close enough to that, then you could trigger an object to appear by either enabling it or adding a scaling effect to it. So like a tween, for instance, making it scale out of the ground. So it looks kind of a bit more magical. So yeah, that's another way of doing things. You could also have that with a timer, I guess. So there's a bunch of different ways of doing that effect. So I see the fourth question is being able to block the objects in the space. So when we repeat the search sessions, objects don't pop up in random places. Yeah. So I guess that's kind of circling back to the second answer I gave. So like once you place an object in Lens Studio in a project, yeah, with custom landmarkers, those objects are always going to be in the same place. Like they won't move around at all. So that's a pretty cool thing to be aware of. And the fifth question is be able to hide objects within an object like a sphere, or people will have to scale the object and go inside to find another object or clue. Yeah, so yeah, you could do that, I suppose. You could scale it in multiple different ways. So you could use hand tracking, for instance, where if someone's hand gets closer to the sphere expands and then the user's inside of the sphere. But I mean, I'm not sure I really understand exactly what the question is, but you could do that as like a puzzle game kind of adventure. Yeah, that's definitely something you could do. Or you could even have, yeah, if you have a sphere that's like an occluder, if someone gets into that sphere, the object could be in there and people would be able to see it. So yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do with that. Let me know if that answers your questions, Elena. I'm not sure I answered them perfectly, but I think, yeah, I think that was pretty good. So I see another question from Jonathan. Are the best practices around objects to scan? Yes, because I imagine Windows would be a difficult thing to scan and triangulate. Right. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. So yeah, you're right, Jonathan. Different reflective surfaces like windows or let's say like cars with like shiny finishes, all of that creates a lot of issues when creating custom landmarkers. So what you usually want to do is actually kind of what I did in this scan I made, is scan a bunch of the walls around the windows, also get the grounds. You also might want to get like yeah, multiple different areas of the mesh. But then what's actually really useful is that I kind of covered this in the previous session, but you have these you have this well, the custom landmarker process is in two steps. You have the mesh first, which is the part that we can see actually on this Q&A window, but you also have the viewpoints, and the viewpoints is what's going to allow you to basically recognize where you are without having to look directly at the window. So yeah, if you get viewpoints from, let's say, the walls around or the sky, like the area around the sky and the floors, then it shouldn't really be a problem. In general, the tracking, even with Windows, if you get enough things around, should work pretty well. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Welcome. But yeah, in general, it works pretty well when you get as many viewpoints as you can. So that's also something I covered in the previous session. So yeah, let me know if you have any other questions. Yeah, if there's any questions from YouTube. Oh, but yeah, Elena, let me know if also if I answered your questions correctly. Oh, you're welcome, Christian. Yeah, appreciate it. But yeah, I'm really curious to see what results you guys create. Yeah, if you make any lenses using this method, please tag me in on Twitter or something, or like send them to me. Like I'm pretty curious to see those. Oh, I see another question. So what do you imagine the best way to activate a user at the custom landmark location? Would it be a snap code? Oh yeah, that's a great question actually. Yeah, because that is one of the things with custom landmarkers. You do need to be at the location to actually use the lens. So having an activation so near the location would always be quite a valuable thing. So for instance, if there's a shop window, you could actually have, yeah, like a snap code on the window, or you could have even an online campaign, let's say, where people are kind of well, it's made kind of obvious that there's a snap lens that you can trigger at a different location. But yeah, I think having a snap code on location is definitely one of the best ways of doing this, because most of the time people tend to forget about well, let's say if they see online that there's custom landmark or somewhere in their city, they won't necessarily remember like to use it when they go there. So yeah, I think having a snap code close to the structure that uh, the custom landmarker is on is a really good practice. Ooh. Oh, last question. So can you have only one custom landmark per lens? Yes, unfortunately for now, I think it's only one per lens. And maybe there's a way of combining multiple, like by having a process of enabling one camera and switching to another that has a different location ID. But I haven't been able to actually make that work. I've tried this in the past. So I think there is a way, but it's fairly complicated and I don't recommend trying that. So I would just try to build everything from one custom landmarker. And also another like good practice that was coming back to my previous answers is that if you're, let's say, scanning well, you want to scan like a huge building with a bunch of windows, maybe then it's better to base your entire lens on one specific window. So do one scan of a mesh of a building's window, and then recreate the rest of the building in 3D. So that does mean you'll have to go on location maybe once or twice to make sure everything's aligned properly. But yeah, like having a giant occluder that's built from an external application. So usually a LiDAR scanning application or photogrammetry application, then you should be able to properly have like a huge project that has multiple windows and all that. So yeah, to circle back to the question, it's only one custom landmark per lens for now. All right, I see. Another little question. um, oh, from Christian. You mentioned LiDAR scans are heavy. What do you mean by that? I was thinking of scanning the entirety of a building, including possibly inside, and bringing it into Lens Studio to place multiple activations to things. Oh, right. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah, so from my personal experience, I had to do a scan in London a few months ago, and it was also like a fairly huge building. And from experience, so I had an iPhone 12 Pro, so with a LiDAR feature, on it, and I was only able to do the LiDAR scan of a portion of the building, and then my phone started overheating, crashed, and everything. And this was on an external application because I don't think you can do this in Snapchat. Yeah, yeah, it was pretty intense. So what I found to be the best way of doing this was actually doing a photogrammetry scan. So taking around 250 pictures of the surface of the building, and then it actually computes this on the cloud somewhere, and then you're able to get a kind of mesh of the building that's a bit more uniform, because also what the problem with LiDAR is that you only have a range of about 3 to 4 meters. So if your building is like 10 meters high, then there's no way that's gonna work. So yeah, I recommend doing a photogrammetry scan and then actually opening it in something like Blender, and then just cleaning up the mesh, or maybe recreating a 3D model of the building in Blender. Because the problem is all of these LiDAR and photogrammetry scans, they can easily go up to like a gigabyte. And so that truly exceeds the 8 megabyte limits of Lens Studio. So you do wanna consider that if you're gonna do like a huge building, you should definitely recreate a low poly version of that building. So using these scans as like a reference. So I don't think it's possible to import the whole thing. So the Polycam app, yeah, I think Polycam's pretty good. I think that's the one I used for my scans, because they do have a pretty good photogrammetry support. So yeah, that was the one I used, but it does take like an hour or two to process the scans because they're like so large. But yeah, I definitely recommend using that. The only caveat with photogrammetry is that it's not going to be up to scale. So you do want to fix that afterwards by aligning it with the custom landmarker mesh. So yeah, that's just a thing you want to consider when you create the 3D copy of your building. But yeah, I'm really curious. What building are you gonna scan, Christian? Is it like a famous building, or is it oh, a museum? Wow, in which city or town? Oh wow, in El Segundo. Okay, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm curious to see how that's gonna end up. And if you have any questions, just reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram. I can answer your questions. But yeah, that's pretty awesome. Good luck. It's a fun learning experience. But yeah, apart from that, if anyone else has any other questions, please let me know. Mm, all right. I think that might be it. Oh, very well. No, thank you guys. Thank you for sticking till the end. Really appreciate it. All right. Yeah, you're welcome for the Q&A. I will end this session here, I think. I'm not seeing any other questions. So you guys take care. Have a good day, or evening or morning, wherever you are. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time, maybe. Bye.